What happens when the world's second-largest economy decides that military modernization isn't just about defense, but about rewriting the rules of international order? Consider China's establishment of its first overseas military base in Djibouti in 2017, projecting power across critical shipping lanes thousands of miles from Chinese shores. China's current military doctrine builds on its 2014 winning informatized local wars and its 2020 joint operations guidelines, melding conventional force with cyber, space, and economic tools. We'll trace how Mao's guerrilla doctrine evolved through informatization and now centers on joint, multi-domain operations. The implications extend far beyond regional conflicts. This is about reshaping how wars will be fought in the modern era. Understanding this transformation requires examining the intellectual foundations that drive China's strategic thinking. The evolution of Chinese military thinking. The transformation of Chinese military thinking represents one of the most dramatic strategic shifts in modern warfare history. Where Mao's 1963 doctrine emphasized defensive attrition warfare, relying on guerrilla tactics to wear down larger foes through prolonged campaigns in China's vast interior, Xi Jinping's military doctrine operates on fundamentally different principles. Mao's concept of people's war assumed China would fight defensively against technologically superior invaders, using asymmetric tactics and the country's massive population as strategic advantages. Today's Chinese military leadership has abandoned this reactive approach entirely, embracing what they term winning wars before they start, through comprehensive national power projection. China's doctrine moved from active defense, 1980, to informatized local wars, 2004, to today's joint multi-domain operations, 2020 guidelines, reflecting the country's growing confidence and capabilities. Military planners recognized that future conflicts will be fought with advanced technology rather than mass mobilization. The PLA has publicly credited Operation Desert Storm for inspiring its 1993 doctrine shift, per CMC white papers, observing how precision strikes and information dominance allowed smaller forces to defeat larger conventional armies. Chinese strategists noted how the United States achieved rapid initial victories through technological superiority, but struggled with prolonged occupations and nation-building efforts. This analysis directly influenced China's current doctrine, which emphasizes achieving decisive results quickly while avoiding extended commitments that could drain resources or invite international intervention. The PLA's 2024 Joint Sword exercise demonstrated this approach, deploying 111 aircraft and 46 vessels around Taiwan in coordinated multi-domain operations. The cornerstone of China's current military doctrine involves achieving strategic objectives without engaging in direct military confrontation whenever possible. This approach integrates economic pressure, cyber warfare, information operations, and diplomatic coercion as primary tools of conflict. Chinese strategists view military force as the final component of a comprehensive campaign that begins long before any shots are fired. Economic warfare might involve restricting access to critical materials or technologies, while cyber operations could target infrastructure and communication systems. Information campaigns aim to shape public opinion and political decision-making in target nations, creating conditions favorable to Chinese objectives. Artificial intelligence and machine learning have become central to Chinese strategic planning in ways that distinguish their approach from traditional military doctrines. Chinese military researchers are developing AI systems that can process vast amounts of intelligence data, identify patterns in enemy behavior, and recommend optimal timing for military operations. These systems analyze everything from economic indicators and political polling, data to satellite imagery and social media trends, providing commanders with unprecedented situational awareness. Machine learning algorithms help Chinese planners predict how adversaries might respond to various forms of pressure, allowing them to design campaigns that maximize strategic gains while minimizing risks. Chinese military education has undergone comprehensive reform to prepare officers for hybrid warfare scenarios that blend conventional and unconventional tactics. Military academies now require students to study disciplines previously considered civilian, including economics, psychology, and information technology. Officer training programs simulate conflicts where success depends on coordinating military operations with cyber attacks, economic sanctions, and propaganda campaigns. Chinese commanders learn to view every action through multiple lenses, considering not just immediate tactical effects, but also broader strategic implications across all domains of competition. The military-civil fusion strategy represents perhaps the most significant innovation in Chinese military thinking, treating the entire Chinese economy and society as potential military assets. Under this doctrine, civilian infrastructure including ports, airports, telecommunications networks, and manufacturing facilities are designed with dual-use capabilities that can support military operations when needed. Chinese companies in strategically important sectors receive guidance on how their operations can contribute to national security objectives. This approach allows China to leverage its entire industrial base for military purposes while maintaining the appearance of peaceful development. Speed and decisive action form the operational core of China's modern military doctrine, reflecting lessons learned from studying how international coalitions form and respond to crises. Chinese planners believe they have a narrow window of opportunity to achieve strategic objectives before facing coordinated international resistance. This doctrine emphasizes overwhelming initial strikes that paralyze enemy decision-making and create conditions where resistance becomes futile. The integration of space-based assets into Chinese military planning demonstrates how thoroughly they have embraced multi-domain operations. Chinese military doctrine now treats satellite communications, navigation systems, and surveillance platforms as critical components of every operation. Military planners assume that future conflicts will begin with attempts to blind or disable enemy satellites, while protecting Chinese space-based capabilities becomes a fundamental requirement for operational success. Chinese cyber warfare capabilities are integrated into military planning at every level, from strategic campaigns down to tactical operations. Chinese doctrine assumes that cyber attacks will precede and accompany conventional military operations, targeting everything from power grids and transportation networks to banking systems and government communications. Military planners view cyber operations not as separate activities, but as essential components of broader campaigns designed to achieve strategic objectives. This comprehensive doctrinal evolution represents far more than military modernization. Chinese strategists have fundamentally reconceptualized warfare itself, creating integrated approaches that treat military, economic, technological, and informational power as components of unified strategic campaigns. Yet doctrine alone tells only part of the story. The true measure of China's military transformation becomes clear when examining the concrete resources backing these strategic concepts. Numbers that tell the story. Numbers alone tell the story of China's rise. According to the 2025 IISS military balance, the People's Liberation Army now maintains 2.035 million active personnel across all branches, making it the world's largest standing military force. This figure excludes the additional 510,000 reserve personnel who provide strategic depth for extended operations. When combined with paramilitary forces, China can mobilize human resources on a scale that no other nation can match. China's naval transformation produces the most dramatic statistics in modern military history. China fields over 370 major warships, projected to grow to 395 by year's end, with its 12 nuclear subs and 4 carriers challenging US naval power directly. By 2030, the plan could reach 435 ships, compared to the US Navy's projected 294. This fleet expansion includes ocean-going amphibious ships that enable force projection across vast distances, while advanced mine warfare vessels demonstrate preparation for both coastal defense and offensive operations. Fleet auxiliaries provide the logistics backbone necessary for extended deployments, addressing historical limitations that previously constrained Chinese naval operations to waters near the homeland. The composition of China's naval expansion reveals strategic priorities beyond mere numbers. Each vessel category represents specific operational requirements derived from comprehensive strategic planning rather than random acquisition decisions. Major surface combatants, amphibious assault ships, and fleet auxiliaries complete a naval force structure designed for sustained operations in multiple theater environments simultaneously. Air power statistics demonstrate China's commitment to modernizing its most technologically demanding military branch. The People's Liberation Army Air Force operates over 3,200 aircraft, emphasizing advanced platforms that incorporate stealth technology and precision strike capabilities. Strategic bombers extend Chinese reach across continental distances, while stealth fighters provide air superiority capabilities in contested environments. This modernization effort prioritizes quality improvements alongside quantity expansion, replacing older aircraft with systems that can operate effectively against sophisticated air defense networks. The organizational structure of Chinese air power reflects lessons learned from studying modern warfare requirements. 5 theater command air forces coordinate operations across China's strategic regions, while 11 core deputy-grade bases control air brigades at operational levels. This command structure enables rapid deployment and coordination of air assets according to strategic priorities, whether for homeland defense or power projection missions. Financial commitment to military modernization tells its own compelling story about Chinese strategic priorities. China's official defense budget reached 1.78 trillion yuan in 2025, approximately $246 billion, representing a 7.2% increase over the previous year. Independent estimates from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute place actual Chinese military expenditure at $314 billion in 2024, making China the world's second-largest military spender, behind only the United States. This spending trajectory demonstrates sustained commitment to military development that spans multiple budget cycles and leadership transitions. Growth rate of Chinese military spending outpaces most other major powers when examined over 5-year periods, while established military powers maintain relatively stable defense budgets. China has consistently increased military investment at rates that compound into transformative capabilities over time. This spending pattern enables China to simultaneously modernize existing forces while developing entirely new military capabilities in emerging domains such as space and cyber warfare. Geographic distribution of Chinese forces reflects evolving strategic concepts that extend far beyond traditional homeland defense. New base constructions in disputed territories and strategic locations demonstrate China's intention to project power across extended distances. The establishment of overseas facilities provides logistics support for naval operations in the Indian Ocean and beyond, while domestic base improvements enhance China's ability to concentrate forces rapidly in potential conflict zones. The integration of paramilitary forces multiplies China's effective military strength beyond traditional calculations. The People's Armed Police contributes additional manpower for internal security and border defense missions, freeing regular military forces for external operations. The Maritime Militia, comprising civilian vessels with military training and equipment, creates additional capabilities that operate in legal gray zones where traditional military forces might provoke international incidents. The Rocket Force exemplifies how China combines quantity with advanced technology to create capabilities that exceed the sum of their parts. With at least 125,000 personnel organized into 7 major bases, the Rocket Force controls both conventional and nuclear strategic missiles that can strike targets across continental distances. This force structure provides China with escalation options ranging from precise conventional strikes to strategic nuclear deterrence. The strategic timeline for Chinese military development reveals systematic planning designed to achieve specific capabilities by designated dates. By 2027, China aims to accelerate integrated development of mechanization, informationization, and intelligentization across all military branches. The 2035 target focuses on comprehensive modernization of military theory, organizational structure, personnel systems, and equipment. The ultimate goal for 2049 envisions a fully transformed world-class military force capable of global operations. Reserve forces and mobilization capabilities provide strategic depth that extends Chinese military potential far beyond active duty personnel. The ability to rapidly expand military forces during crises or conflicts gives China options that smaller military establishments cannot match. This mobilization potential becomes particularly significant when considering scenarios involving extended operations or multiple simultaneous commitments. These staggering figures underpin a doctrine that aims for regional dominance and beyond. Yet raw numbers tell only part of the story. The true transformation lies in how China is integrating cutting-edge technologies to multiply the effectiveness of these massive forces in ways that could fundamentally alter the nature of warfare itself. The technology revolution within. Advanced technologies now serve as the foundation for this transformation. China's PLA calls AI a force multiplier in its 2020 Science of Military Strategy text, fundamentally changing how military operations unfold. China's PLA rocket force brief to Congress described its use of AI to identify critical vulnerabilities in enemy systems, per DoD 2024. These AI-powered platforms compress traditional military timelines from hours to minutes across intelligence gathering, target identification, and tactical decision-making processes. Chinese military researchers have developed systems that process satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and battlefield sensor data simultaneously, providing commanders with real-time situational awareness that exceeds human analytical capabilities. These systems learn from each operation, building databases of enemy patterns and behaviors that inform future engagements. Chinese autonomous weapons platforms now operate with increasing independence, requiring minimal human oversight for routine surveillance and reconnaissance missions, while maintaining human authorization requirements for lethal engagements. Hypersonic weapons represent the most significant shift in strategic calculations, rendering existing missile defense systems obsolete through sheer speed and maneuverability. Chinese hypersonic glide vehicles travel at speeds exceeding Mach 5 while following unpredictable flight paths that confound interceptor missiles designed for ballistic trajectories. The DF-21D anti-ship ballistic missile, with its 2,150 km range, exemplifies this capability by threatening naval vessels previously considered safe from land-based attacks. Chinese engineers have solved the technical challenges of maintaining guidance and control at hypersonic speeds, creating weapons that combine the range of intercontinental ballistic missiles with the precision of cruise missiles. These capabilities compress decision-making timeframes for potential adversaries, while expanding China's strike options across multiple domains simultaneously. Cyber and electronic warfare capabilities developed by Chinese military engineers can systematically blind enemy satellites and communications networks through directed electromagnetic attacks and sophisticated jamming techniques. China tested an anti-satellite laser in 2007, demonstrating early commitment to space warfare capabilities that have since evolved into comprehensive systems. The Information Support Force manages both space and cyber warfare operations, operating ground-based transmitters capable of disrupting satellite communications across vast geographic areas, while mobile electronic warfare platforms can accompany advancing forces to maintain localized information dominance. Chinese electronic warfare systems target specific frequency bands used by military communications, GPS navigation, and satellite imagery systems, creating information blackouts that paralyze enemy coordination. Chinese military doctrine emphasizes electronic attacks as opening moves in any conflict, designed to isolate enemy units and prevent coordinated responses to Chinese military operations. Commercial technology companies, including Huawei and Tencent, contribute critical capabilities to Chinese military modernization through dual-use technologies that serve both civilian and military applications. Huawei's telecommunications infrastructure provides the backbone for military communications networks, while its 5G technology enables real-time coordination of autonomous weapons systems and battlefield sensors. Tencent's artificial intelligence research contributes to military surveillance and analysis capabilities, while its social media platforms provide intelligence gathering opportunities and information warfare capabilities. Chinese military planners leverage civilian technology development cycles that operate faster than traditional military procurement processes, incorporating commercial innovations into military systems within months rather than years. Chinese cyber warfare units conduct operations across multiple domains simultaneously, targeting power grids, transportation networks, financial systems, and government communications as components of broader military campaigns. These units employ artificial intelligence tools that can identify vulnerabilities in enemy networks and execute attacks with minimal human supervision. Chinese cyber capabilities extend beyond destructive attacks to include data manipulation, system infiltration, and long-term monitoring that supports intelligence gathering and operational planning. Unmanned systems development encompasses everything from small reconnaissance drones to autonomous naval vessels capable of independent operations across ocean distances. Chinese military factories produce swarms of miniaturized drones that can overwhelm air defense systems through coordinated attacks, while larger unmanned aircraft conduct surveillance missions lasting multiple days. Autonomous naval vessels under development include submarine hunting platforms that can patrol vast ocean areas without human crews, and unmanned surface vessels equipped with missile systems for offshore combat operations. These unmanned systems reduce personnel risks while extending Chinese military presence into areas where manned platforms might provoke international incidents. China's approach to military technology emphasizes leapfrogging Western developments rather than copying existing systems, investing resources in breakthrough technologies that could provide decisive advantages rather than incremental improvements. Chinese military research prioritizes technologies that Western militaries have not yet deployed operationally, including quantum communications, advanced artificial intelligence, and novel materials science applications. This strategy aims to create capability gaps that favor Chinese forces while avoiding direct competition in areas where Western militaries maintain technological leads. Technological integration across military branches creates force multiplication effects that transform individual capabilities into coordinated systems of systems. Chinese command and control networks link artificial intelligence analysis with hypersonic strike capabilities, electronic warfare systems, and cyber operations to create synchronized attacks that exceed the sum of their individual components. Information gathered by autonomous reconnaissance platforms feeds directly into targeting systems for directed energy weapons and hypersonic missiles, while electronic warfare capabilities suppress enemy responses to Chinese attacks. This integration enables Chinese forces to achieve decisive effects through coordinated technological capabilities rather than relying solely on numerical superiority or individual weapons system performance. Yet technology alone cannot deliver military success without the organizational structures needed to coordinate these advanced capabilities across multiple services and domains. Joint Operations Mastery. The PLA has created command structures that function like a single organism across all military branches. In late 2020, PLA's new Joint Operations Command Guidelines mandated integrated brigades for joint operations at the brigade level, fundamentally transforming how Chinese forces coordinate complex operations. Analysts at Shanghai Observer noted service parochialism hindered joint drills until the 2020 guidelines eliminated traditional barriers between Army, Navy, Air Force, Rocket Force, and Information Support Force units. The 5 theater commands now exercise unified operational control over all military assets within their geographic areas, creating seamless coordination that eliminates jurisdictional conflicts during time-sensitive missions. Each theater command maintains integrated planning staffs with representatives from all military branches, ensuring operational concepts incorporate the full spectrum of available capabilities from initial planning through execution. This structure enables theater commanders to coordinate complex operations without negotiating between competing service headquarters or resolving conflicting priorities. Training facilities like Zurich Base demonstrate this integration through exercises involving replicated Taiwan Presidential Office drills, where multiple services practice coordinated strikes against mock targets representing real strategic objectives. These realistic scenarios test coordination under simulated combat conditions, compressing traditional operational timelines through simultaneous attacks across multiple domains. Exercise participants report smooth coordination between previously incompatible military branches operating under unified command structures. The Central Military Commission orchestrates the most complex operations through direct oversight of theater commands and service branches. Commission members possess authority to override service-specific priorities when joint operations require unified action, enabling rapid decision-making during crisis situations while maintaining flexibility for extended operations across multiple domains. This centralized command structure coordinates strategic-level planning that integrates military operations with diplomatic, economic, and information warfare campaigns. China's joint operations concept treats all forms of national power as components of unified strategic campaigns rather than supporting elements for military action. Unlike Western military integration that focuses on coordinating different military branches while maintaining clear distinctions between military and civilian activities, Chinese doctrine integrates military operations with economic pressure, diplomatic initiatives, cyber warfare, and information campaigns as equally important strategic elements. This approach requires coordination mechanisms extending beyond traditional military command structures to include civilian government agencies, state-owned enterprises, and Communist Party organizations. Joint logistics systems provide the foundation for sustained military campaigns far from Chinese territory through prepositioned supplies and flexible transportation networks. Chinese military planners have established logistics hubs across potential operational areas that support multiple military branches simultaneously without requiring individual service-specific supply chains. These systems incorporate civilian transportation infrastructure, including commercial shipping, aviation, and rail networks that transition to military support roles when required, while advanced inventory management systems track supplies in real time across vast distances. Training programs have produced a new generation of joint operations commanders through intensive education, emphasizing multi-domain coordination and strategic thinking beyond traditional military specializations. Chinese military academies require all senior officers to complete joint operations courses, including realistic simulations of complex multi-service campaigns. These programs expose commanders to capabilities and limitations of unfamiliar military branches while teaching coordination techniques that maximize combined effectiveness. Officer rotation assignments ensure future commanders gain operational experience with different military branches before assuming senior positions requiring joint operations expertise. Communication systems enable real-time coordination across continental distances through secure networks, connecting all military branches and command levels simultaneously. Chinese military communications incorporate redundant satellite links, fiber optic cables, radio networks, and cybersecure channels that maintain connectivity even when individual systems face disruption or attack. These networks feature artificial intelligence-enhanced routing capabilities that automatically redirect communications around damaged infrastructure while maintaining encryption standards, protecting operational security. Recent exercises reveal current capabilities through realistic scenarios, demonstrating coordination under simulated combat conditions. The Joint Sword 2024A exercises featured simultaneous naval blockades, amphibious assault preparations, air superiority campaigns, missile strikes, and cyber warfare operations coordinated across multiple theater commands. These exercises incorporated over 200,000 personnel from all military branches, operating under unified command structures that compressed decision-making timelines while maintaining operational security. Vice Admiral Carl Gantz's memoir notes Chinese joint drills cut satellite feeds to American Navy, creating real fear among observers of their coordination capabilities. The Straight Thunder 2025A exercises demonstrated coordinated amphibious assault preparations integrating naval bombardment, airstrikes, electronic warfare attacks, and cyber operations against simulated enemy defenses. These exercises compressed traditional operational timelines by conducting simultaneous attacks across multiple domains that overwhelmed simulated enemy responses through coordinated timing and target selection. Exercise participants reported smooth coordination between previously incompatible military branches, operating under unified command structures, eliminating traditional communication barriers. Current joint operations mastery represents the culmination of decades of institutional reform, creating genuinely integrated military capabilities across all domains of modern warfare. Chinese military forces can now coordinate land, sea, air, space, cyber, and information operations under unified command structures that function effectively at strategic distances and operational scales, rivaling any military organization worldwide. Yet this conventional integration represents only part of China's military transformation, as unconventional forces operating in legal gray zones add entirely new dimensions to Chinese military capabilities. The Maritime Militia wild card. The Maritime Militia serves as a force multiplier for naval blockades, operating through what military analysts call little blue men. About 150 civilian vessels under maritime militia control that conduct military missions while maintaining their commercial fishing appearances. This force represents one of the most innovative military concepts of the 21st century, blurring the lines between civilian and military operations in ways that confound traditional strategic planning. These vessels appear as ordinary fishing boats, cargo ships, and coastal patrol craft, yet they function as extensions of Chinese naval power projection capabilities. The concept allows China to assert territorial claims and gather intelligence through ostensibly civilian activities that avoid triggering direct military confrontations with other nations. In May 2024, CCG and militia vessels encircled Kinmen in a dual-layer blockade, named the Cabbage strategy, demonstrating coordinated operations that appear civilian but serve clear military purposes. On July 16, 2025, CCG 3103 and 3105 operated with AIS off around Pratas Island, mirroring Kinmen tactics and establishing patterns that foreign naval commanders struggle to counter without appearing to target innocent civilians. These operations involve dozens of vessels acting in coordination, creating overwhelming presence that achieves strategic objectives without formal military engagement. Fishing fleets serve dual purposes as both commercial enterprises and intelligence gathering platforms that monitor foreign naval movements while asserting Chinese territorial claims. These vessels conduct routine fishing operations that provide legitimate cover for surveillance activities, monitoring shipping patterns, military exercises, and infrastructure development in disputed waters. Fishing crews receive training in observation techniques, communication protocols, and reporting procedures that transform routine commercial activities into systematic intelligence operations. The boats carry sophisticated communication equipment that allows them to transmit real-time reports to military commanders while maintaining the appearance of normal fishing activities. The legal gray zone these vessels occupy creates complex challenges for potential adversaries who must distinguish between legitimate civilian activities and military operations. International maritime law protects civilian vessels from military interference, making it difficult for other nations to respond forcefully to maritime militia activities without risking escalation or violating international conventions. This ambiguous status allows Chinese vessels to operate in disputed waters, conduct surveillance missions, and assert territorial claims while maintaining plausible deniability about their military functions. Foreign naval commanders face difficult decisions when encountering these vessels, as aggressive responses could be portrayed as attacks on innocent civilians. Training programs prepare civilian mariners for military-style operations through comprehensive courses that cover navigation, communications, surveillance, and coordination with regular military forces. These programs teach fishing boat operators to recognize and report foreign military vessels, coordinate with Coast Guard and Navy units, and maintain operational security during sensitive missions. Participants learn to operate advanced communication equipment, conduct basic reconnaissance, and execute coordinated maneuvers that support larger military operations. The training emphasizes maintaining civilian appearances while performing military functions, ensuring that militia activities appear legitimate to foreign observers. Coordination between maritime militia, Coast Guard, and Navy forces creates integrated maritime operations that maximize the effectiveness of each component through unified command structures. The Chinese Coast Guard provides law enforcement authority and larger vessels for more visible operations, while Navy forces supply heavy combat capability and strategic coordination. Maritime militia vessels fill operational gaps by providing persistent presence in disputed areas, conducting routine surveillance, and supporting larger operations through logistics and communication relay functions. This three-tier system allows China to maintain continuous pressure in contested waters while escalating or de-escalating tensions according to strategic requirements. Seemingly civilian vessels carry concealed weapons and sophisticated surveillance equipment that transform commercial fishing boats into multi-purpose military platforms. Hidden compartments contain communication gear that connects militia vessels to military command networks, while disguised antennas enable long-range surveillance and intelligence gathering. Some vessels carry concealed anti-ship missiles and surface-to-air missile systems that can engage enemy forces when activated, though these weapons remain hidden during normal operations. Advanced radar and sonar equipment, disguised as fishing gear, provides detailed intelligence on foreign naval movements and underwater activities. Actual conflict scenarios reveal how militia concepts could support major military operations through roles that complement conventional naval forces. During a potential Taiwan blockade, militia vessels could establish outer perimeters that monitor and intercept civilian shipping, while regular Navy forces focus on military targets. These boats could conduct amphibious support operations, transporting supplies and personnel to landing zones while maintaining civilian appearances that complicate enemy targeting decisions. Maritime militia forces could also conduct harassment operations against enemy supply lines, using their civilian status to approach targets that would be off-limits to obvious military vessels. Traditional military planning struggles to account for hybrid forces that operate outside conventional categories of civilian and military activities. Standard rules of engagement assume clear distinctions between combatants and non-combatants, making it difficult to develop appropriate responses to militia operations that blur these boundaries. Military commanders must balance the need to counter Chinese maritime expansion with international law requirements that protect civilian vessels from attack. The maritime militia concept represents a fundamental challenge to established norms of naval warfare by creating persistent military presence through apparently civilian means. This approach allows China to achieve strategic objectives that would be impossible using conventional military forces alone, while maintaining plausible deniability about aggressive intentions. These developments force military planners worldwide to reconsider basic assumptions about naval warfare and territorial control, particularly as China's ambitions extend far beyond its traditional coastal waters. Power projection beyond borders. China's global reach now spans 3 continents through permanent military installations that transform theoretical capabilities into operational reality. The establishment of overseas military bases and logistics facilities creates the infrastructure foundation necessary for sustained global operations. China's support base in Djibouti provides the People's Liberation Army with its first permanent overseas military facility, enabling sustained naval operations in the Indian Ocean and access to African operations. This base includes port facilities capable of supporting Chinese naval vessels during extended deployments, maintenance facilities for equipment repair, and communication centers that connect overseas operations with command structures in Beijing. Additional facilities include a listening station in Cuba, a base in Tajikistan, and the Espacio Lejano station in Argentina, operated by a PLA unit, while the plan maintains rotational deployments at the Ream Naval Base in Cambodia. These raw vessel totals matter because China's shipyards can churn out new ships faster, 230 times US capacity. If current shipbuilding trends continue, China may field 435 battle force vessels by 2030 compared to the US projected 294, building on current numbers showing US Navy count of 296 ships versus China's 395, expected in 2025 from DoD and IISS data. Chinese shipbuilding capacity enables rapid fleet expansion that outpaces American construction timelines, creating strategic advantages through industrial capability rather than individual vessel superiority. Expeditionary forces capable of operating far from Chinese territory undergo specialized training and equipment modifications that prepare them for deployment in unfamiliar environments. These units practice operations in desert conditions, tropical climates, and high-altitude regions that differ dramatically from China's domestic geography. Chinese expeditionary forces include logistical specialists trained to establish supply chains across intercontinental distances, communication experts who can maintain connectivity with headquarters despite geographic separation, and medical personnel equipped to treat casualties in areas without advanced healthcare infrastructure. The PLA has sent forces to various hotspots as part of peacekeeping operations in Lebanon, the Republic of the Congo, Sudan, Ivory Coast, Haiti, Mali, and South Sudan, providing realistic operational experience. China's military presence in Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America reflects strategic priorities that extend beyond traditional security concerns to include economic interests and diplomatic influence. African operations include peacekeeping deployments that provide Chinese forces with realistic operational experience while supporting Chinese diplomatic objectives in the region. Chinese military engineers have participated in infrastructure development projects that serve both humanitarian purposes and strategic interests, creating facilities that could support future military operations if required. Middle Eastern presence focuses on protecting Chinese energy investments and trade routes that transport essential resources to Chinese markets. The Belt and Road Initiative creates military logistics networks through civilian infrastructure projects that incorporate dual-use capabilities designed to support military operations when necessary. Ports constructed under belt and road agreements include facilities capable of accommodating Chinese naval vessels, while railways and highways provide transportation networks that could move military equipment and personnel rapidly across vast distances. These infrastructure investments appear as commercial development projects, but incorporate design features that enable military use during crises or conflicts. The integration of civilian and military logistics creates cost-effective solutions that achieve strategic objectives while maintaining commercial viability and international acceptance. Strategic airlift and sealift capabilities enable Chinese forces to transport personnel, equipment, and supplies across intercontinental distances within operationally relevant timeframes. The People's Liberation Army Air Force operates transport aircraft capable of moving entire military units to overseas locations, while the Navy maintains auxiliary vessels designed specifically for long-range logistics support. These capabilities include specialized equipment for loading and unloading military vehicles, refrigeration systems for food and medical supplies, and fuel storage that enables extended operations without local support. Training programs prepare Chinese forces for overseas operations through realistic exercises that simulate deployment conditions and operational challenges. These programs include language training for communication with local populations, cultural education that prepares personnel for interaction with foreign societies, and technical instruction on equipment operation in different environmental conditions. Chinese military units practice rapid deployment procedures that compress the timeline between deployment orders and operational readiness in foreign locations. Chinese military operations beyond the first island chain demonstrate growing confidence and capability in power projection across extended distances. The planned strategy of far seas protection involves operations beyond the first island chain, including the northern Indian Ocean and the western Pacific Ocean, encompassing both peacetime and wartime missions such as defending vital sea lanes and striking high-value enemy targets. Naval exercises in the Indian Ocean involve multiple Chinese vessels operating in coordination for extended periods without returning to Chinese ports. The three-stage 2027-2030-5-2049 roadmap outlined in the DoD 2024 report reveals systematic progression toward comprehensive global capabilities. By 2027, China aims to accelerate integrated development of mechanization, informationization, and intelligentization. The 2035 target focuses on comprehensive modernization of military theory, organizational structure, personnel systems, and equipment. The ultimate 2049 goal envisions a fully transformed world-class military capable of global operations. These expanding capabilities and ambitious timelines point towards specific scenarios where China believes its military transformation will face its ultimate test. The Taiwan scenario, decoded. CDOT analysis indicates a dual-layer blockade, and cyber-first strikes will open any Taiwan operation, following a three-phase sequence that Chinese military planners have refined through years of systematic preparation. Phase 1 involves information warfare and cyber attacks designed to paralyze Taiwan's command infrastructure. Phase 2 escalates to naval blockade operations enforced by Coast Guard and Maritime Militia forces. Phase 3 encompasses amphibious assault operations targeting key strategic locations. This progression reflects the PLA's doctrine of systems confrontation, where the goal is to achieve strategic objectives through coordinated pressure rather than immediate invasion. The January 17 CMC briefing revealed specific operational timelines that compress traditional invasion sequences through parallel rather than sequential operations. Chinese planners assume they have approximately 72 to 96 hours to establish irreversible control before international coalitions can organize effective military responses. This timeline drives Chinese emphasis on rapid, decisive operations that achieve strategic objectives through speed and coordination, rather than prolonged campaigns that would allow international intervention. The PLA's goal of achieving national unification before its centennial in 2027 creates additional timeline pressure that influences training priorities and operational planning assumptions. Information warfare and cyber attacks form the critical opening phase through coordinated campaigns designed to paralyze Taiwan's command and communication infrastructure before kinetic operations begin. Per DoD 2016-2024 reports, PRC may preempt with strikes on communications networks and non-military provocations to justify early air defenses. The PLA's doctrine of integrated network and electronic warfare emphasizes infiltrating or disabling enemy IT and communication systems as early as possible, creating conditions where Taiwan's military forces cannot coordinate effective resistance. Chinese cyber operations target power grids, telecommunications networks, financial systems, and government communications simultaneously to create cascading failures that overwhelm Taiwan's crisis response capabilities. The blockade strategy represents China's preferred method for achieving Taiwan objectives through economic pressure that avoids the costs and risks associated with direct military invasion. Chinese Coast Guard vessels would enforce the primary blockade using their law enforcement authority to inspect and redirect commercial shipping, while maritime militia fishing vessels establish outer perimeters that monitor and harass vessels attempting to reach Taiwan. The dual-layer cabbage strategy involves encircling the target with 2 layers of naval units, as demonstrated during May 2024 operations around Kinmen Island. This approach leverages China's overwhelming numerical superiority in naval vessels while exploiting legal gray zones that make international responses more difficult to coordinate and justify. Air superiority campaigns and missile strikes would precede any invasion through coordinated attacks designed to eliminate Taiwan's air defenses and military command capabilities within the opening hours of conflict. The PLA rocket force possesses precision strike capabilities against targets across Taiwan, including military installations, communication centers, and leadership facilities that coordinate defensive operations. Chinese air operations would focus on establishing air superiority over the Taiwan Strait while suppressing Taiwan's surface-to-air missile systems through coordinated attacks by fighters, bombers, and unmanned systems. The integration of missile strikes with air attacks creates overwhelming pressure that exceeds Taiwan's defensive capabilities while demonstrating Chinese resolve to potential international interveners. Amphibious assault capabilities reflect extensive Chinese preparation for landing operations that could secure Taiwan through direct military action if blockade and pressure tactics prove insufficient. Chinese landing forces train extensively for urban warfare scenarios that assume operations against prepared defensive positions in populated areas. The PLA has developed specialized equipment for amphibious operations, including new landing craft, amphibious assault vehicles, and engineering equipment designed to overcome beach obstacles and establish beachheads rapidly. Landing force preparations include extensive training for post-assault operations, including securing airfields, ports, and government facilities that will be essential for consolidating control over Taiwan. Geographic and weather considerations create specific operational windows that favor Chinese military operations through natural factors that enhance Chinese advantages while constraining Taiwan's defensive options. The Taiwan Strait's geographic characteristics limit the approaches available for amphibious operations, while concentrating defensive requirements in predictable areas that Chinese forces can target with precision strikes. Weather patterns create seasonal opportunities when sea conditions favor large-scale naval operations, while limiting Taiwan's ability to conduct effective air operations. Chinese planners have identified specific combinations of weather, seasonal, and political factors that would maximize their operational advantages while minimizing international intervention capabilities. Taiwan scenario planning influences every aspect of PLA modernization through requirements that drive capability development, training priorities, and resource allocation decisions across all military branches. Chinese military researchers develop weapons systems, communication networks, and logistics capabilities specifically designed to overcome challenges identified in Taiwan's scenario planning. Training programs emphasize skills and coordination techniques that will be essential for Taiwan operations, while strategic planning assumes that successful Taiwan operations would establish China's credibility for other potential conflicts throughout the region. The comprehensive nature of these preparations demonstrates how Taiwan unification serves as the organizing principle behind China's entire military transformation, with implications that extend far beyond the Taiwan Strait itself. Regional security implications. Three key regional powers demonstrate how Chinese military transformation forces strategic recalculations across the Indo-Pacific. The CRS 2025 report to Congress identifies China's naval modernization as the top focus for American defense planning, highlighting how Beijing's capabilities reshape strategic thinking even among global superpowers. Japan's 2025 defense white paper sparked immediate backlash when it excluded direct criticism of Chinese military expansion, prompting a formal protest from the PRC Ministry of Foreign Affairs that demonstrated how even diplomatic language choices now carry military implications. Taiwan responded by expanding its Han Kuang exercises to include civilian infrastructure protection scenarios, recognizing that future conflicts would target the entire society rather than just military forces. Arms race dynamics produce measurable increases in defense spending as China's official military budget reached $246 billion in 2025, representing a 7.2% increase over the previous year, while the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute estimates actual Chinese military expenditure at $314 billion. These massive investments create pressure on neighboring countries to enhance their own military capabilities, leading to regional spending increases that compound into sustained competition cycles. Nations that previously maintained modest defense budgets now face difficult choices between economic development priorities and military modernization, requirements necessary for maintaining strategic relevance in an environment where Chinese capabilities grow exponentially. Japan's strategic adaptation reveals the most comprehensive allied response to Chinese military expansion through defense strategy modifications that incorporate new technologies and operational concepts. Japan's consideration of transferring used destroyer escorts to the Philippines marks the nation's first export of used naval vessels, potentially establishing precedents for expanded Japanese military cooperation throughout the region. Japanese defense planning now emphasizes joint operations capabilities that can coordinate with American forces while maintaining independent deterrent capabilities against multiple potential threats simultaneously. The integration of Japanese civilian infrastructure into defense planning demonstrates recognition that future conflicts would blur traditional boundaries between military and civilian targets. ASEAN nations confront complex strategic calculations as they navigate pressures from both China and the United States while attempting to maintain economic relationships and political independence. The People's Republic of China promotes narratives supporting a more Sino-centric world order, including perceptions that large coalitions of non-Western nations align against Western dominance. Economic considerations influence ASEAN decision-making processes as member states recognize that challenging Chinese aggression or coercion could worsen their economic situations through reduced trade and investment opportunities. Some ASEAN states demonstrate increased receptivity to Chinese overtures, potentially resulting in closer alignment with Beijing that complicates American and allied strategic planning throughout Southeast Asia. The economic leverage China wields through belt and road investments creates dependencies that affect military and diplomatic decision-making across the region. India's military development responds directly to Chinese capabilities through comprehensive modernization programs that address multiple domains of potential conflict simultaneously. The People's Liberation Army's focus on joint operations and cyber warfare integration, including capabilities that might deploy before actual conflicts begin, influences Indian strategic planning and capability development priorities. Chinese naval expansion and advanced weaponry development create arms race dynamics that drive Indian military spending increases, while focusing Indian modernization efforts on countering specific Chinese advantages. Indian military planners study Chinese operational concepts extensively, developing countermeasures and alternative approaches that could neutralize Chinese technological and numerical advantages in potential conflict scenarios. The Himalayan border disputes provide testing grounds where both militaries refine doctrines and capabilities that would apply to broader regional conflicts. China's military growth directly affects global trade routes and economic security through expanding control over critical maritime passages and transportation networks. Chinese military expansion, particularly naval buildup programs, creates potential disruption capabilities for global trade flowing through South China Sea routes and other strategic waterways. Chinese control over key sea lanes combines with increasing military presence in critical shipping areas to create economic leverage that extends far beyond traditional military threats. The integration of Chinese economic statecraft with military capabilities enables Beijing to use trade relationships and economic dependencies as strategic weapons that achieve political objectives without kinetic military action. Competition intensifies dramatically in space and cyber domains, where traditional geographic limitations become irrelevant and new forms of strategic advantage emerge rapidly. China views space as a critical domain for both conflict and international strategic competition, operating satellite constellations that perform reconnaissance, navigation, communication, and counterspace functions across global areas of operation. Chinese cyber warfare capabilities serve military operations through data collection, constraining adversary actions, and providing force multiplication effects when combined with kinetic attacks. These domains enable China to project power and influence far beyond traditional military reach, while creating vulnerabilities that affect all nations regardless of their geographic distance from China. Regional military balances undergo fundamental shifts as Chinese naval buildup programs position the People's Liberation Army Navy to challenge American maritime dominance across multiple measures of naval capability. The United States Navy responds by shifting greater percentages of its fleet to Pacific operations, while increasing presence and cooperation with regional allies to maintain strategic balance. These shifts create more complex and dynamic security environments where traditional assumptions about military superiority and strategic stability no longer apply reliably. Regional security now orbits Chinese military modernization, forcing new alliances and defense postures that recognize military competition extends beyond traditional battlefields into domains where information and perception shape strategic outcomes before any shots are fired. Intelligence and information warfare. The 2014 informatized local wars doctrine calls for seizing information dominance at conflict outset, driving massive investments in capabilities that can control the information environment before any physical battles begin. The People's Liberation Army now operates under the assumption that wars are won through information superiority that paralyses enemy decision-making while maintaining Chinese operational security. Information warfare represents the critical domain where China believes it can neutralize technological advantages held by potential adversaries, while leveraging its own strengths in coordination and strategic patience. In 2020, PLA reorganized SSF into ISF to unify space, cyber, and yield under specialized command structures that integrate information capabilities with conventional military planning. The information support force manages and protects information and communication systems across all PLA services while conducting offensive operations that target enemy networks and decision-making processes. Personnel within this force receive training that combines traditional military skills with advanced technical education in computer science, telecommunications, and behavioral psychology. China operates extensive satellite constellations that provide comprehensive space-based intelligence capabilities across reconnaissance, navigation, communication, and counterspace functions. The Beidou navigation system enables precision targeting and coordination for military operations while reducing Chinese dependence on foreign satellite systems. Jianbing reconnaissance satellites collect electro-optical and synthetic aperture radar imagery that supports targeting intelligence and battle damage assessment for Chinese military planners. Chinese cyber warfare capabilities operate across two primary mission areas per DoD 2016 report that demonstrate the comprehensive nature of Beijing's approach to information dominance. Intelligence collection provides strategic advantages through penetration of foreign government networks, military systems, and critical infrastructure facilities, gathering sensitive information about enemy capabilities, intentions, and vulnerabilities while establishing persistent access that can be activated during conflicts. Network disruption operations target communication systems and logistics networks to hinder adversary actions through systematic disruption of command and control capabilities. The integration of cyber attacks with kinetic operations creates force multiplication effects that exceed the sum of individual capabilities, enabling smaller Chinese forces to achieve disproportionate strategic impact against technologically superior opponents. The MDPW concept from DoD 2024 briefing integrates AI, big data, and joint precision, strike vulnerabilities through automated systems that process vast amounts of data from multiple sources simultaneously. Chinese AI systems analyze satellite imagery, intercepted communications, social media activities, and economic indicators to identify patterns that reveal enemy capabilities and intentions. Machine learning algorithms enable Chinese intelligence services to predict adversary behavior and optimize their own operational planning based on comprehensive data analysis that exceeds human analytical capabilities. These systems operate continuously, providing real-time updates on changing strategic conditions while maintaining security protocols that protect Chinese intelligence sources and methods from foreign detection. Chinese psychological operations and influence campaigns exploit social media platforms and information manipulation techniques to shape public opinion and influence enemy decision-making processes. The Information Support Force conducts systematic campaigns that exploit existing social divisions within target societies while promoting narratives favorable to Chinese strategic objectives. These operations combine traditional propaganda techniques with sophisticated understanding of social media algorithms and behavioral psychology to maximize impact on target audiences. Chinese information warfare specialists develop sophisticated understanding of platform algorithms, user behavior patterns, and content distribution mechanisms to optimize their influence campaigns. These operations coordinate authentic Chinese accounts with automated systems and foreign assets to create apparently grassroots movements that actually serve Chinese strategic objectives. Chinese defensive measures protect domestic information systems through comprehensive security protocols that assume constant foreign attack attempts against critical infrastructure and military networks. These defenses include redundant communication systems, sophisticated intrusion detection capabilities, and rapid response teams that can isolate and repair compromised systems. Chinese information security emphasizes protecting both military networks and civilian infrastructure that supports military operations, recognizing that modern warfare requires integration of civilian and military information systems. The defensive approach includes deception techniques that provide false information to foreign intelligence services while protecting genuine Chinese capabilities and intentions from detection. Information warfare capabilities enable conventional military operations through real-time intelligence sharing, communication coordination, and enemy disruption that multiplies the effectiveness of kinetic attacks. Chinese doctrine emphasizes seizing information supremacy immediately at conflict initiation, or even before hostilities begin through preemptive operations that blind enemy sensors and communications. This approach allows Chinese forces to operate with superior situational awareness while denying similar capabilities to their opponents, creating decisive advantages in targeting accuracy and operational coordination. The Information Support Force participates directly in major training exercises alongside conventional military units, demonstrating the integration of information warfare with traditional military operations. These exercises feature reconnaissance and intelligence gathering from land and space-based sensors that support joint operations planning and execution. Chinese information warfare units establish command and control posts, manage communications networks, conduct cyber warfare operations, and deploy electronic jamming and counter-jamming techniques that enable conventional forces to operate effectively in contested environments. Chinese information warfare demonstrates systematic preparation for conflicts decided through comprehensive campaigns that achieve strategic objectives without prolonged fighting. Yet information dominance alone cannot deliver victory without the economic foundations that sustain military operations and create strategic dependencies that extend far beyond traditional battlefield considerations. Economic warfare integration. China's 2020 State Council MCF white paper explicitly links military-civil fusion to economic tools, treating commercial relationships as weapons of war that achieve strategic objectives without firing a single shot. This perspective fundamentally differs from Western military thinking, which traditionally separates economic and military activities into distinct policy domains. Chinese doctrine integrates trade relationships, industrial capacity, and financial systems as extensions of military strategy. The People's Liberation Army studies economic warfare as intensively as conventional military operations, recognizing that controlling supply chains and creating economic dependencies provides leverage that complements military threats. The military-civil fusion strategy creates a dual-use industrial base that serves both civilian economic growth and military modernization through integrated manufacturing systems. MCF guidelines require civilian industries to support defense requirements, particularly in telecommunications and rare earth sectors. Chinese factories producing consumer electronics also manufacture military communication equipment, while shipyards building commercial vessels can quickly transition to naval ship construction. This approach allows China to maintain enormous industrial capacity that appears civilian, but provides strategic military advantages during crises. Trade relationships function as strategic weapons through systematic creation of asymmetric vulnerabilities, where other nations depend more heavily on Chinese markets, technology, or resources than China depends on them. Supply chain control becomes military advantage through systematic efforts to dominate production and distribution networks for strategically important materials. China controls significant percentages of global production for rare earth elements, advanced batteries, solar panels, and other technologies that modern militaries require for operations. Per Global Firepower 2025, China ranks third in Global Power Index due in part to its large industrial outputs, demonstrating how economic weight translates into strategic leverage. During crises, China can restrict exports of critical materials or technologies, forcing adversaries to choose between accepting Chinese terms or facing equipment shortages that degrade their military capabilities. State-owned enterprises operate according to strategic guidance that considers military and political objectives alongside commercial considerations. The government uses these enterprises to establish economic relationships that create strategic dependencies, acquire critical technologies, and build infrastructure that supports military operations when required. Chinese state-owned companies in energy, telecommunications, transportation, and manufacturing sectors receive government direction on investment priorities and international expansion that supports broader Chinese strategic goals. This approach enables China to pursue strategic objectives through apparently commercial activities that avoid triggering direct military responses from potential adversaries. Economic sanctions and trade restrictions serve as military tools through coordinated campaigns that impose strategic costs on target nations while demonstrating Chinese resolve. China employs these measures against countries that support Taiwan, challenge Chinese territorial claims, or align too closely with American strategic interests. These economic weapons include restricting imports of specific products, limiting Chinese tourist travel, reducing technology transfers, and pressuring Chinese companies to withdraw investments from target countries. Trade restrictions against Australia, following calls for investigations into COVID-19 origins, showed how China uses economic pressure to discourage international criticism. Technology transfer restrictions and investment limitations against companies supporting Taiwan demonstrate how economic tools reinforce military threats while maintaining plausible deniability about aggressive intentions. Financial systems integration into national security strategy creates additional tools for economic warfare through control over payment systems, currency relationships, and investment flows. China promotes increased use of its digital currency and payment systems as alternatives to Western-dominated financial networks, providing potential sanctions, evasion capabilities for partner nations, while reducing Chinese vulnerability to financial restrictions. Chinese banks and investment funds receive strategic guidance on lending and investment decisions that support broader national security objectives, treating financial relationships as extensions of foreign policy. The Belt and Road Initiative demonstrates this integration by combining infrastructure investment with strategic objectives that create economic dependencies while establishing Chinese influence in strategically important regions. Technological standards and infrastructure development create strategic dependencies through systematic efforts to establish Chinese systems as global defaults in critical sectors. China promotes its telecommunications equipment, transportation systems, and energy technologies through subsidized exports and favorable financing that makes Chinese solutions attractive to developing nations. Once established, these technological systems create long-term dependencies that are difficult and expensive to replace, while providing China with potential access and control capabilities during crises. Chinese companies work closely with government agencies to ensure that their international expansion serves strategic objectives while building market share that supports commercial success. Economic warfare achieves military objectives without kinetic action through coordinated pressure campaigns that demonstrate Chinese capabilities while avoiding actions that would justify military responses. China's approach emphasizes gradual escalation that allows target nations to adjust their policies without losing face, while demonstrating the costs of continued resistance to Chinese interests. This strategy provides Chinese leaders with options between diplomatic protests and military action, filling gaps in traditional escalation ladders that allow more nuanced responses to international challenges. These economic tools prepare the battlefield for the blockades and coercion scenarios that define modern Chinese military strategy. By creating dependencies and vulnerabilities before conflicts begin, economic warfare shapes the strategic environment where military operations unfold. The integration of economic pressure with military capabilities represents a comprehensive approach that challenges fundamental assumptions about how nations compete and conflict in the modern era. Global security implications. These strategic dependencies now reshape international security across every continent. China's rejection of the UNCLOS tribunal ruling in 2016 demonstrated willingness to challenge established international law when it conflicts with Chinese interests. The existing framework of international military and security institutions developed around assumptions that no longer hold when China's maritime militia defies traditional law of the sea norms by operating civilian vessels for military purposes. The United Nations Security Council, NATO alliance structures, and regional security organizations struggle to address hybrid threats that deliberately blur boundaries between military and civilian activities. International institutions face unprecedented challenges from Chinese capabilities that operate outside traditional frameworks for managing great power competition. These institutions developed during periods when military competition occurred primarily between clearly defined alliance blocs with similar technological capabilities and strategic doctrines. China's integrated approach to military, economic, and information warfare creates threats that existing institutions cannot categorize or respond to effectively. The legal frameworks governing international security assume clear distinctions between military and civilian activities, making it difficult to address Chinese strategies that exploit these definitional gaps. Nuclear deterrence undergoes fundamental changes as China develops advanced nuclear capabilities alongside conventional forces designed to prevent nuclear escalation during regional conflicts. China's nuclear modernization includes mobile missile systems, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and advanced warheads that create uncertainties about Chinese nuclear doctrine and employment strategies. The traditional bilateral nuclear relationship between the United States and Russia becomes triangular with China's emergence as a nuclear peer competitor, creating deterrence dynamics that existing strategic frameworks cannot adequately address. Chinese development of hypersonic weapons and advanced missile defense systems further complicates nuclear stability by creating capabilities that could theoretically neutralize nuclear deterrent forces. Two specific examples demonstrate how China's military rise creates global ripples that extend far beyond regional competition. The Russia-China Entente during the Russia-Ukraine war showed how Chinese support enables sustained military operations that challenge Western strategic calculations, while Europe's scramble following BRICS statements revealed how Chinese influence affects alliance relationships worldwide. The EU's July 2025 rewrite of PRC dialogue protocols reflected growing European concerns about Chinese military expansion, while ASEAN responses to PRC statements at July meetings demonstrated how regional organizations struggle to maintain neutrality when faced with Chinese pressure. International law faces systematic challenges from Chinese operational concepts that deliberately exploit legal gray zones and definitional ambiguities. China's maritime militia operations challenge traditional distinctions between civilian and military vessels, while Chinese information warfare campaigns operate below thresholds that would trigger conventional military responses. Economic warfare tactics that integrate trade relationships with strategic coercion create situations where existing international law provides inadequate guidance for appropriate responses. Chinese space and cyber capabilities operate in domains where international legal frameworks remain underdeveloped, enabling Chinese operations that achieve military objectives while avoiding clear violations of established international norms. Global powers adapt through comprehensive modernization programs that prioritize technologies and operational concepts specifically designed to counter Chinese advantages. The United States shifts a greater percentage of its fleet to the Pacific while assigning its most capable new ships and aircraft to the region according to Congressional Research Service analysis. European nations increase defense spending and develop expeditionary capabilities that enable operations in Indo-Pacific regions where Chinese military expansion threatens their economic interests. India pursues independent military modernization that addresses Chinese threats while maintaining strategic autonomy from Western alliance structures. New forms of conflict emerge from Chinese military innovations that integrate multiple domains of warfare in ways that previous military planning never anticipated. Chinese capabilities enable conflicts that begin with economic pressure and information warfare before escalating to conventional military operations, creating escalation ladders that existing crisis management frameworks cannot address effectively. The integration of civilian infrastructure with military capabilities creates targeting challenges that complicate traditional rules of engagement, while Chinese dual-use technologies blur distinctions between military and commercial activities. Global arms sales and military technology proliferation accelerate as nations seek capabilities that can address Chinese military advantages, while Chinese companies compete for international defense contracts. China now offers alternative military technologies to nations seeking independence from Western defense suppliers, creating competitive dynamics that drive technological advancement while complicating alliance relationships. Chinese defense exports include not just equipment, but also training, doctrine, and operational concepts that spread Chinese military thinking to partner nations worldwide. The Chinese military model increasingly influences other nations' military development through demonstration effects that show how comprehensive modernization can challenge established military powers. Countries with regional ambitions study Chinese approaches to military-civil fusion, joint operations integration, and economic warfare as templates for their own strategic development. The Chinese emphasis on information warfare and cyber capabilities becomes standard practice for militaries worldwide as nations recognize the importance of information dominance in modern conflicts. These developments force fundamental questions about whether existing international frameworks can manage competition that transcends traditional military categories. The integration of military, economic, technological, and informational power creates security challenges that require comprehensive institutional adaptation while maintaining effectiveness in preventing conflicts that could escalate to global warfare. The stakes extend beyond regional tensions to encompass the basic principles governing how nations compete and resolve disputes in an interconnected world. China's military transformation represents more than modernization of equipment and doctrine. The integration of artificial intelligence with hypersonic weapons, economic warfare with maritime militia operations, and information campaigns with conventional forces creates capabilities that existing security frameworks cannot address effectively. These developments force every nation to reconsider fundamental assumptions about deterrence, alliance structures, and crisis management. Taiwan's Han Kuang drills now integrate across all domains simultaneously, demonstrating how modern warfare transcends traditional military categories. Understanding these shifts is vital as Chinese doctrine reshapes trade, alliances, and even peacetime norms of sovereignty. As China writes new rules of warfare, global responses in the coming years will define the new strategic order. Can the world's institutions adapt before new rules of war become the new normal? For more deep dives into modern military strategy, subscribe and hit the bell.